and welcome again to the InitiativeOne podcast, where leaders like you come to learn how to maximize your impact and how to transform your lives. We're delighted that you're here with us. I am Dr. Fred Johnson. I'm the founder of InitiativeOne, and I am delighted to have our special guest today, Tony Reale. Tony is a principal of our our digital company, Creative Edge. They have been pivotal to the growth of our company. They have widened our exposure to our global audience, and they have made us better as a company in so many ways. Tony, we welcome you, and we're glad and thrilled and honored that you're with us today.
I appreciate it, yeah. I get to enjoy all of your podcasts and your think tanks behind the camera, so it's really fun to be able to sit next to you and talk to you today.
Well, the cool thing is at least I have a little bit of control today, and I'm going to enjoy that with you.
All right.
You know, leadership has changed in a lot of ways. And one of the things that Tony and I were talking about is what does leadership look like in a digital age? And is the place of film, the place of podcasts, the place of maximizing your message through the digital community, is that just fluff? Or is it here to stay, and what kind of role does it play? So first of all, I want to say we are so thankful for Creative Edge. We've had some really good partners in the past, but you all have continued to teach us, and we are growing hopefully as much as you are in terms of your expertise, and we thank you for your partnership.
Absolutely. It's always fun to be able to work with a client that, you know, we not only get to experiment and grow and stretch ourselves, but also we get to help spread the message of something that we truly believe in.
Thank you so much. So, you know, you're a relatively new company, and you have a unique story. There's no company that has been around for any length of time that doesn't go through trials. And we know that one of the marks of growing a business is tenacity. And we've seen tenacity with you. Can you describe the timeline of your organization, and when was its most trying time? How did you get through it? And what would you say as a lesson or a message to our listeners who are wanting to develop their own dreams?
So I started getting into video as a hobby back in the early 2000s. I started off kind of doing graphic design, and I thought that was kind of the direction I wanted to go. But I found out that, you know, 5 graphic designers and a buck can buy you a coffee. There was a lot of them. So I was like, you know, there's something else I could get into, and I discovered video and really, really enjoyed it. And I got obsessed with like how to make, why does my video stuff look just like a handy cam, and why does Hollywood look like Hollywood? And so I learned lighting and cameras and all the different things that went into making something look cinematic. And after a while, there wasn't really a film school in the area at the time, so I just kept buying camera equipment. And I got to a point where I'm like, you know, I should probably start a company because I've spent so much money, I need to write some of this off. And then I started putting my name out there, built a website, started getting a few clients, and I was doing it completely on my own. But then I had some great team members that I was working with on side projects, and I just said, hey, I can't grow this company any bigger on my own. Would you guys be interested in working together, and let's see if we can do this? So I had to give up work during that time, income to myself, to be able to say, all right, we need to head up a post-production department. We need to head up a pre-production department. I'll focus on production. And so there was that period of like growth, and then I lost some income in order to allow them to come on time, full time. And so that then all of a sudden we were able to accomplish much bigger projects and much bigger clients. And we went from a few $1,000 projects here and there to bigger clients. We worked with Festival Foods and Georgia Pacific and some really big brands in the area. And we had steady growth all the way up to COVID, which it hurt a lot. That was a period where we lost we lost over $100,000 in business in a matter of a month, but also a lot of the inside champions, the points of contact that we had at these companies, they got let go. And so the people that we were, and then we'd reach out to that same company again, I don't know who you are, because like that person was the reason that we had that business.
Yes.
And for the following like 6 months to a year after that, I had to donate blood just to make rent sometimes. And it was a really, really tough period. And that was the point where we started going back and going, okay, as we're getting new clients coming in, they're just looking at us as another hammer. I need a new roof on my house.
Another vendor.
Exactly.
Yes.
You get a quote. You find out. Okay, it's going to cost this much to do it. All right, that's the cheapest one. Just pick that. So we weren't clarifying the value of what we could offer. And what I basically went back to the drawing board and said, let's rebuild the company in a direction where we can not just focus on creating good content for our customers, but also helping them use that content to grow their business. And that turning point is what's allowed us to now really be blossoming. And we've been bringing on new team members, and it's been great. And it's allowed us to like work with clients like you and not just say, hey, we can provide you pretty looking video, but we can also help you use that video to really make more money. And those are the things that you need. Pretty video is nice, it looks nice, but results matter more. If you're going to make that investment in that, you need to see some level of growth come out of it. And so that's what's been really exciting for us, to be able to talk metrics and numbers and less about images and shots and that type of stuff.
One of the things that caught our attention immediately the first week we started working is you saw yourself and are a critical partner inside our business, and you started making suggestions immediately about some changes that we needed to make, and quite frankly, it shook up a couple people, and that's when we knew we were in the right direction, so one of the things that I've noticed, and we teach, is that if you're going to develop a successful business, you have to begin to develop behaviors right off the bat that welcome and build partnerships and not just vendor contracts. Vendor contracts, they want the cheapest. They really, it's not a source of emphasis for them. There's not a whole lot of loyalty. It's transactional. Partnerships are long-term. They're fully invested. They're relational. They're both wanting win-wins. How have you gone about separating those vendor relationships who just really want to use your services in a one-shot deal and gaining those partnerships? What have you found for you are keys to doing that?
That's a great question. And a lot of it is just kind of feeling out those people when they come in. Because, when you guys first reached out to us, you had an immediate need. And so we came in and we discussed how we could meet that. But we didn't have a lot of time to get to know you initially. So that was, we pitched what we had, and we hoped that it was in line with what you needed, in the budget that you had, all that kind of stuff. But then through just those first even month or two of working together, I could get to know you and tell if you were receptive to that feedback. There's been plenty of clients where we would go in and kind of, say, hey, we think that you could, nope, they're not interested. And usually in those points, I'll kind of just back off, and either we have to really establish ourselves as the experts to build that trust, or frankly, through content marketing, which you guys are so good at, establish that expertise so that when they're discovering you, when they're learning about you in the first place, again, it's like we're going back to the hammer analogy. Sometimes if people are just looking and expecting that, as opposed to somebody with a great amount of expertise, how do they know that? How do they know InitiativeOne has the ability to meet all these different needs as opposed to just the one thing that they might have reached out to you for? And a big part of it has to come from the marketing approach that you have and the learning resources that they can come across. And so for me, I realized like it can't just be, the expectation can't just be, all right, we're going to sit down and meet and then I'm going to pitch you everything. I have to create a library of education myself and teach people how to use video marketing, use social media content, how to create a strong marketing and digital marketing strategy for them. Because if they don't value that approach, then they don't value the services that we offer in the first place.
So I'm hearing you say that one of the secrets to your approach is that building a relationship of trust is essential before you can really start rolling out your craft. I also saw something else. Often people, when they start a new business, they have so much self-doubt that they're so afraid. Number one, they think, am I ever going to get a client? And when they get that client, I don't want to ever lose that client, because they don't believe enough in themselves to know that they can do this. So they dance around, they tell the client what they think that person wants to hear. They're not always truthful, and just kind of kid gloves. I didn't see that with you all. I mean, you came right in, we asked you what you thought, and you told us. And you didn't do it in an offensive way, but it was clear, it was firm, and it was confident. And that actually won me more than your track record did, even though your track record was impressive. I mean, been the keynote speaker at Festival College every year for like 8 or 9 years in a row. And that's where I met you. So, and they only hire the best and partner with the best. So I knew you guys were the real deal. What would you say to someone out there wanting to develop a business that is critical in how you communicate to a new potential relationship, knowing that they could walk away?
Well, some of the key things that I would say that's important is you need to express how you can benefit them and how you can solve their problems. I think a lot of businesses get wrapped up in the perspective of, this is what we do great. We're really good at this. We've been doing this for so many years. We've got amazing team members. We have systems that we've got in place. We figured this all out. And then in their marketing or in their message or on their website, you hear how great they are. And I liken it to the story. I say it's like, think about like Superman. If Superman walked around and all he did was just tell everybody how amazing he was.
And I'm Superman. I'm Superman.
Yeah, I'm super strong and I got laser eyes and I can, I've got all this super strength and all this. If he just did that and that's all he did, he kind of sounds like a jerk. But Superman becomes the hero when he saves the day, when he stops the villain. That's where people get excited about it. So
when he meets the need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so in your marketing and your message and in that sales process, what you should be doing is focusing on the need that you're trying to solve for your client. That's the only way that the transaction's ever going to go through. I always say, like, the only way a sale goes through is when the money in your wallet is worth less than the problem that this thing is solving for you. So you have to be worth more. And if you can provide that worth and that value, then it's a lot easier to just jump right into that understanding. That's
really cool. I talked to my team, so many people, especially in service-related businesses, they're scared to death, quote, of selling. And I tell people, we don't sell. We solve people's organizational problem. And that requires you to make it about them, not about yourself. And you're not going in and you're not convincing people why you're so great. You're listening to their pain point. Mm-hmm. And you're offering, whether they take you on or not, you're offering, you're already in the process in your mind. You're offering legitimate solutions that you're not there to provide video, to enhance content. You're there to solve an organizational need. And if that organizational need gets met, it means the company is in a trajectory that they want to be. That's what I love about you all, that you understand that we're not videographers. We're here to solve your organizational problem in a significant way that few people can do it. And oh, by the way, we do videography. How do you respond to that?
That's exactly right. Like I love creating beautiful images. That's what got me interested in the first place. But that doesn't translate into a business model in and of itself. I mean, unless you have somebody that's specifically what they want. You know, there's filmmakers, but I love the challenge more so of taking the message of a brand and translating that into something that the audience can understand, that they can respond to. Basically, you know, using content marketing as a way to strip away the distance between that gap of here's the things that we offer and this is how it can benefit me as a consumer or as a business or whatever it might be. Because that gap is that the bigger that gap, that's your sales process. That's how long it takes to get somebody there. And that's the journey that somebody goes through. We call it the customer journey. And as we can shorten that and tighten that up, that transition becomes faster and faster.
Because it builds trust.
Exactly.
If someone sees you over and over again and somehow in watching you, you are able to say, this person can meet a need for me, that raises trust, which strengthens and lengthens and shortens the sales process.
And so in answering your previous question, I think that the thing that people should be obsessed with isn't how can I get more customers, or it should be how can I make my processes and my systems and the product or service that I offer so good that I'm inherently better than my competition.
Yeah.
And then within that, focus and obsess on how can I then educate my customers to understand that. The one thing that I often say is like, you know, if somebody came in through your front door of your business and they said, I have a question about the services that you offer. And you say, we don't answer questions here. If you go down the street, our competition would be happy to answer that. That would be ridiculous. And yet, in content marketing, a lot of businesses are doing that exact same thing. They don't create content that answers questions, that shows their expertise, shows them as a subject matter expert. There's other videos that when people do a Google search or a YouTube search to find an answer to a question they have, they're finding their competition. And it's a great resource and a place for people to do that. And you guys do an amazing job of that. And as we've been talking, even in the past few months, like we're really excited to expand and grow that as well. But that's such an essential thing because you're establishing yourself as a subject matter expert. You're creating a rapport with your audience and you're creating that social proof. You know, like in interacting with us, we have a YouTube channel with over 100,000 subscribers. It's not that we just make good video. Like we live and breathe it, and we know how to use it and how to market it. So that I'm more obsessed with like you see some TV commercials where they're really highbrow, you know, fancy car ads that like don't even make sense, don't even tell me about the product. Some cinematographers, some content creators are really obsessed with the next artistic project. I'm obsessed with the right content for the right platform. I don't care if it's shot on your cell phone or one of my cinema cameras. What I care about is it going to reach the audience and is it going to grow your brand?
Mm-hmm. You know, when we often talk about our biggest enemies are the messages in our heads. When you started your company, did you have any messages dancing in your head?
I remember my very first shoot after, again, starting the company and having all this camera gear that I'd just been playing around with and saying, all right, I need to actually maybe make some money with this stuff. I put my name out there, and a company out of Chicago, a marketing agency, reached out to us for a shoot in Milwaukee, and I'm this one-man band out of Green Bay. I invited my business partner, Sean, who became my business partner later on, out with me, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I showed up, I set up my camera, hooked up the monitor, and like stepped back, and then the creative director of the agency walks up. He's like, "This looks great. Let's roll." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, okay, good." And then years later, when I started bringing more business partners on board, one of our business partners was a bit older, and I kind of let him be the face of the company for a period, because I felt I was in my early 20s at the time, and I'm like, I didn't want ageism to be a thing. I didn't know if my youth would become a detractor to people's willingness to interact with me. That partner has since gone on to other things, and so I felt the need to step up and be that voice. And so I definitely have that whole imposter syndrome in the back of my head when I get up to do shorts or when I do podcasts or other educational content. I'm like, why? There's other people that have been doing this longer or better or worked on bigger clients or whatever, but I also recognize that need that I have to practice what I preach. I tell my clients this all the time. You guys are doing a great job of this, but there's a lot of companies that aren't. And so we have to explain to them, like, this is really the effective way to do it. And we can't say that you should do it and then not do it ourselves. And so in that process of doing it, I also have learned so much. I've gotten more comfortable with it to the point where it's easier and easier for me to coach and direct other people, because I know how hard it is to be on the other side of the camera.
Someone asked me yesterday, what are those keys in growing a business? And one of the things I said was to overcome that internal message that says you don't belong here. Just show up. Just keep showing up, and reminding that little guy, that little message in our head that it's sincere, but it's just wrong, and that this is my time, this is my moment. The other thing that I'm impressed about is you mentioned something that one of the most critical moments in an organization, staying as a one-person boutique, one-man band, as you called it, or becoming a legitimate company, is what do they do if they're successful and effective and they know what they're doing? What do they do in that moment that the company has grown legitimately beyond that person's need to do it as a one-person show? Because at that point, you're probably making plenty of money. Certainly that happened to me. I was making more money than I'd ever made in my life, but I was running myself ragged. And I had no life. And I remember I had to make a decision. Am I willing to, quote, take 2 steps back to take the next 5 steps forward? Mm-hmm. Many organizations, many leaders will not make that step. They want security, stability, and safety, that they're willing to want to wrap their arms around it and say, no, this is what I want because it's guaranteed. You didn't do that. In fact, your income temporarily fell because part of what was coming into you are now sharing it with your colleagues. That takes a lot of strength and a lot of long-term thought to do that. What did your head say to you when you were doing that? And what allowed you to overcome that and make this decision?
Well, I think the best analogy is like moving a couch. Like I could try all day to try and move a couch across the living room, and I might scuff up the walls and the floor in the process. Or if 2 people get together, they can move a couch really easily. And the idea that you can do more together than you can apart. Like if you look at the credits on any Hollywood film, you'll see how many people work on them. There's no way any of those movies could exist without all of the expertise of those people working together. So even in the realm of like, yes, I had to give up income and and in order to do that, in order to be sane and have the right person in the job too. Like Sean's a great editor. He does a way better job than I did just when I was doing it completely on my own. And so I love having the right person in that job. But it also allowed us, like we knew we were never going to be able to work with a certain level of clients or grow to a certain level of content creation if we didn't get to that point. Like me hauling all the camera gear that you see here by myself and trying to do everything, it's just impossible.
Yeah.
So I had the dream and the goal and the vision that I wanted to get there. And one thing, even going back to the COVID conversation we had earlier, the one thing that I've embraced and has probably been the most important factor in all of entrepreneurship and in business is just, I say the greater the irritant, the greater the pearl. And the most frustrating moments, the points where like we're about ready to just shut everything down, those were the catalysts that then caused the biggest change and allowed us to not then come out and, they don't always work out perfectly, but the more comfortable you get with failure and the more you embrace it and learn that's the point where I can now have a deciding factor. The thing I say is it's actually failure is great. It's really a lot easier when something fails because then you know that it's done. What's hard is when things are just getting by, when they're doing okay, and then you pour more effort into it, or do you cut it loose?
Yes.
Failure is great.
You keep referring to vision. The opposite of vision is playing it safe, and you came to that crucible moment, and if you wanted to make what made best financial sense in the moment, it would have been, I'm going to stay a one-man show. But you said, but it doesn't fit my vision. The most effective leaders, research shows, are those who are purpose-led, purpose-driven leaders in their decision-making. So I saw that you made that pivotal decision, and then when things went haywire because of the pandemic, what kept you going was the power of your vision. And in both scenarios, it pulled you through the quagmire of fear, the quagmire of the terror of, are we going to survive? I think that's one of your biggest secrets. Factors for your success is that you have such a clear vision, and it's so powerful that you use it every day in your decision making, even to say yes or no. And that kind of decision making and thought process, we say it's in the 1% of our population. And so I say kudos to you. You are living what we try to teach to our audiences every day. And thanks to you and Sean and your team, our audience is growing larger and larger. By the way, you mentioned this term called social proof. And it's a big term today. What do you mean by social proof?
So, going back to what we talked about earlier about, you can focus on the features and the uniqueness of your business, what you're so great at or whatever, but being the hero, showing those examples of how you've helped other people, that obviously resonates. It's so much easier for people to understand how you can benefit them. I mean, think about any widget or anything that you've come across over the year. You might be like, I don't understand how that would benefit me. And then somebody does a video or shares with you a life story where they're like, I use this for something in my life. You're like, oh my gosh, I need to buy that because I could totally see myself doing that. That example of why it's something that I could use and benefit from is a form of social proof, and it can be testimonials, it can be case studies, it can be a variety of things that show off how you've helped your customers or how your product is able to help.
Without you bragging on yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even have to be that like elaborate. Like sometimes we say, especially for video content, so just hop onto a Zoom call with somebody and say, hey, do you mind if we record this and shoot something? Share that, because those messages are so much more important. And so it's. Testimonials are a great way, but again, showing off your expertise. Not, I often say, like, how can you expect anybody to know you exist if there's no content for them to discover you with? And a lot of people like to sit back and be like, I got my business, I got my website, we got our building, now people show up. And like people, the way that people consume information, the way that they expect a digital presence of you. They expect something to be there, and that's how they're going to judge you before they even walk through your door or make a phone call.
It used to be like, does this person have a website?
Yeah.
Years ago, do they have an ad in the yellow pages? Social proof continues to change and evolve. And today is, do they have a robust presence on social media?
Exactly. Yeah, your online, and it isn't just your business brand, it's your personal brand. Like you get that. Like InitiativeOne has its business brand of what it does, but then there's the Dr. Fred Johnson brand and your expertise as well. And those both have to be maintained. You can't just have one or the other necessarily, because people don't just hire a business, they hire people. And they need to see those people and get to know those people. And the more familiar and comfortable they are with them, the easier it is for them to make that phone call.
So one could say, well, it is such a competitive space. Now everybody is on social media. What do I need? How do I know that they're going to look at me? How do I differentiate myself in the world of social media now that everyone's on social media?
The answer to that is, don't worry about differentiating yourself. Worry about providing value to your audience. That should be the obsession. If your content is insightful, it's actionable, it's valuable, then somebody's going to consume it. You will develop an audience. And when will that happen? I can't tell you when it'll happen, but it's like exercise. If you spent 10 hours exercising today, and then you didn't exercise for 5 months, okay, that's not great. But if you exercise for 10 minutes a day for 5 months, you're going to see much bigger results. Now, it might happen in month 3 or month 6 or month 10. I don't know. But not doing it is a guarantee nothing's going to happen.
Just stay with it.
Right. And there's so many success stories of people that finally committed to it and started doing it. And sometimes it's TikTok, sometimes it's Facebook, sometimes it's Instagram. Any one of these platforms can be a launching point to really building and growing your brand. And the excuse of like, well, there's a lot of people doing it. Sure, but there's a lot of people not doing it. And there's still a lot of platforms, social media platforms. The thing that they have to sell to their advertisers is audience attention and audience retention. They want to keep people on the platform. So if you're creating valuable content that people are engaging with, they will reward that content with views because they want people to stick around and watch this content. And so if you are genuinely creating good and valuable content, you can get free advertising from the platforms. Now, you can obviously put ad spend behind that, and there's strategies, and we take our customers through that. But again, if you're obsessing about providing value and insight, if you do it good, that you can literally get free advertising out of these platforms.
So insightful. I want to say to the audience, if you're looking for expertise in the digital realm, someone who can teach you how to position yourself for success. Now, be prepared to make some changes and be prepared to make some adjustments in some things that may be near and dear to you that, quite frankly, are not as effective as you think they are. These folks will let you know, but they do a great job. And we're so thankful for the folks at Creative Edge. Before we wind this down, any final thoughts that you would say to someone that is grinding through it right now and they're questioning themselves, did I make the right decision? Should I fish or cut bait? Anything that you would tell them?
You know, going back to what we talked about with failure earlier, I said a lot of times there's the reason that there aren't more innovators in the world is because most people haven't failed enough to become one. And I feel like failure is something that people need to get super comfortable with and embrace and allow that to be that catalyst for the next step. Because again, I've learned so much more through failure than I have through success. And that when you've got that pressure of like, why am I not at this point? Why should I? What should I do? Should I cut bait? Allow that to be something that can light the next direction. Because There are several points in my career, in my business, where if I had hit a huge level of success right here, nothing would have changed. You know, if after COVID things just went back to normal, we probably wouldn't have focused on our digital marketing strategy with our clients as much. We would have just been a company that just can continue making pretty videos. But
Well, and quite frankly, I think it's one of your big separators now. So out of the burden of that period, the blessing of reinvention came out of it that quite frankly separates you.
And that it's easy to look back now and be like, yes, that was great,
Yeah.
you know. But in the midst of it, it's a pain.
Yeah.
You're going through that period. Like, how do we continue to exist? Are we still? Is there a place for us in the marketplace?
We tell people the three kinds of companies in their relationship with the pandemic. There were those who got crushed by the pandemic. There were those who waited, got through the pandemic. And there are those who transformed themselves through the pandemic. You meet the third. And it requires a lot of honesty, a lot of self-reflection, a lot of courage. And bravo to you, and bravo to your team. So I want to say to each of you, thank you for joining us. I want to encourage you, if this has been helpful, hit the subscribe button. Others will become more aware of who we are so that they can benefit the way you've benefited during this podcast. Also, look at in the subscribe button, also rate and review us. And then talk about a gift that we want to offer to you that's about you and not about us. Join us for our once a month think tank that we offer as a complement to our leadership community all over the world. It allows you to get to know us, get to know our expertise on your terms without, quote, being sold. And I think you'll also get a lot of really powerful information. Join the several hundred people who join us every month. We hope to see you soon. Again, Tony, it's such a privilege to meet. I've learned a lot just sitting here and listening. And I appreciate your leadership, and I appreciate our partnership and working together for a long time. Take care and have a great day.